The scream was blood-curdling, a sound that would haunt my nightmares for weeks. It wasn't the kind of yelp you hear when someone stubs their toe. It was a pure, raw shriek of terror, abruptly cut short by a guttural growl that reverberated through the phone. I heard a thud, then frantic whimpering, followed by my canine handler's calm but firm command, "Stand down. Tighten. Good boy." My heart hammered against my ribs, a cold dread washing over me as I heard the distinct jingle of Titan's tags, a sound usually so comforting, now laced with an undeniable sense of dread. And that's when everything went wrong. Before I tell you what happened next, drop a comment. What would you do if this happened to you? And subscribe to HOA Files. My name is Mark, and for 20 years I've been a canine officer with the City Police Department. It's a demanding job, but incredibly rewarding. My partner Titan, a magnificent German Shepherd, isn't just a dog. He's my shadow, my protector, and frankly my best friend. When I'm not on duty, my life is pretty low-key. I live in a modest, single-story house in a quiet suburban neighborhood, or at least, it used to be quiet. The trouble started, as it often does, with the HOA. Specifically, with Carol. Carol lived 2 doors down, and from the moment she moved in, she seemed to have made it her personal mission to micromanage the entire block. She was the self-appointed Neighborhood Standards Committee chair, a title I'm pretty sure she just made up. Every lawn blade, every rogue leaf, every untrimmed rosebush was under Carol's intense, scrutinizing gaze. My house, with its slightly overgrown but well-loved garden and the occasional dog toy in the yard, was, in her eyes, a constant affront. The first official volley came in the form of a passive-aggressive note tucked under my doormat. It wasn't a formal HOA letter, just a typed memo, unsigned, complaining about unsightly lawn ornaments, which I assume meant Titan's chew toys and excessive canine noise pollution. I laughed it off. Titan barely barks unless he's on duty or a squirrel dares to challenge his domain. But the notes kept coming, escalating in tone. Then came the emails, from an anonymous, concerned neighbor address, with subject lines like, "Your property. A blot on our community's aesthetic." I forwarded them to the actual HOA management company, who, to their credit, sent out a general reminder about respecting neighborly privacy. That just seemed to fuel Carol's fire. My first face-to-face encounter with Carol was memorable. I was out front, giving Titan his morning brush, when she stormed up my driveway, a grimace plastered on her face. "Mr. Peterson," she began, her voice shrill, "we need to talk about your..." Animal Titan, sensing her aggressive posture, let out a low, inquisitive whine, then nudged my hand for a treat. "He's a sweetheart, really. A big teddy bear, off-duty, Carol," I said, trying to keep my tone even. "This is Titan, my partner. And he's a trained police canine." Her eyes widened, not with awe, but with a kind of indignant horror. "A police dog? Living here? This is a residential neighborhood, not some police kennel. The barking is excessive, and frankly, the sight of him is intimidating to children." I looked at Titan, who was now patiently waiting for his treat, tail giving a slow, happy thump-thump against the grass. Carol Titan is incredibly well-behaved, and his barking is well within normal limits. As for intimidating children, most kids love him. "Well, my grandchildren are terrified," she countered, crossing her arms. "In your yard, it's an absolute disgrace. Those toys everywhere, and that patch of... What even is that?" She pointed a dramatic finger at a small, slightly wild patch of native wildflowers I was trying to cultivate. "It's a pollinator garden, Carol," I explained, trying to suppress a sigh. "It encourages bees and butterflies. It encourages weeds and pestilence." She shrieked. "This neighborhood has standards, Mr. Peterson. And your lifestyle is bringing down our property values." "My lifestyle is contributing to public safety, Carol," I said, my voice hardening. "And my property is my business. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have a walk to go on." I turned away, effectively dismissing her, and I could practically feel the steam rising from her ears. After that, the complaints escalated to official HOA channels. I received formal letters about unapproved landscaping modifications, unregistered pets, even though Titan was clearly registered, and his police credentials meant he was exempt from many typical pet rules, and even excessive refuse accumulation, referring to the single, neatly tied trash can I put out on collection day. Each time, I calmly provided documentation, explaining the situation, and each time, the HOA management sided with me. They were getting tired of Carol's constant barrage too, but Carol wasn't one to give up. She started taking pictures of my house, pictures of Titan sunbathing in the yard, pictures of my mail pile visible through the window, even pictures of my car parked slightly over the sidewalk. It felt like I was living under surveillance. I started drawing my blinds more often, closing my garage door, feeling my privacy slowly eroding. One evening, I came home from a late shift, exhausted, and noticed something off. The front door felt different when I unlocked it, almost as if it had been forced open slightly and then relatched. I checked the lock, tried to jimmy it. Nothing seemed overtly broken, but a subtle part of my cop instincts prickled. I walked through the house, Titan at my heels, sniffing every corner. Nothing seemed missing, nothing out of place. It was unsettling. I decided to install some covert security cameras just in case. Call it paranoia, but my gut was telling me something was wrong, and my gut rarely lied. A few weeks later, I was scheduled for an overnight training exercise with Titan, about an hour out of town. It was a rare occurrence for both of us to be away from the house at the same time. Before I left, I activated my new motion sensing cameras linked to my phone and double-checked every lock. I had a nagging feeling, a cold premonition that this was exactly the opportunity Carol had been waiting for. The training was intense, grueling, and I barely had a moment to think about home. But that night, as I lay in my bunk, exhausted, my phone buzzed. It was a motion alert from my living room camera. My heart leaped into my throat. I immediately opened the feed. What I saw made my blood run cold. There, in my living room, was Carol. She was wearing surgical gloves. For crying out loud, meticulously dusting my mantelpiece with a feather duster, she moved from object to object, muttering to herself, occasionally sniffing something, then wiping it with a small cloth. It was a scene straight out of a horror movie. My home, my sanctuary, violated. My first impulse was to jump in my truck and race home. But then I remembered the training exercise. My backup K9 handler, Dave, was staying at my house to watch the place while I was gone. He was supposed to be there. And then I remembered something else. Titan wasn't with me. He was with Dave. A new wave of panic hit me. Where was Dave? Was he okay? Had Carol hurt him? I immediately called Dave. No answer. My heart hammered even harder. I tried again. Still nothing. My mind raced. What if Carol had ambushed him? What if this was more than just petty trespassing? I called 911. I need an officer to my address immediately. I barked into the phone, giving my address. I have an intruder in my home, and I have reason to believe she may have assaulted my house sitter. I explained my profession, the K9 unit, and the live camera feed. Sir, are you sure about the assault? The dispatcher asked, clearly trying to verify. I can't confirm. But my house sitter isn't answering his phone. And the intruder is actively in my house, I replied, my voice tight with controlled fury. And the house sitter is a police officer himself. The dispatcher assured me a unit was on its way. I stayed glued to my phone, watching the feed. Carol had moved into the kitchen now, opening cupboards, running her finger along surfaces. She even opened my refrigerator, peered inside, and then, to my utter disbelief, actually rearranged my condiments. The audacity. Then, I saw it. A dark shape emerged from the hallway, a low rumble echoing through the room. Titan, he walked into the kitchen. His head cocked, observing Carol with an almost comical confusion. He wasn't aggressive. He was curious. Carol, however, didn't seem to notice him at first. She was too busy inspecting my spice rack. Oh, for heaven's sake, she muttered, picking up a jar of cumin. This simply won't do. Who puts cumin next to the paprika? It's a culinary travesty. Titan let out a soft woof. Carol spun around, dropping the cumin jar, which thankfully didn't break. Her eyes, wide with shock, landed on Titan. She gasped. A small, choked sound. Titan, now sensing her distress, took a step closer, letting out another, slightly deeper woof. He was still in curious dog mode, not police dog mode, but to Carol, I'm sure he looked like a ravenous wolf. Stay back, you. You beast. She shrieked, backing away until her back hit the counter. Titan, probably thinking she wanted to play, wagged his tail once, then sat down, looking up at her expectantly. That's when I heard Dave's voice, groggy and a little annoyed, coming from off-camera. Titan, what's going on, buddy? Why are you barking? Dave walked into the kitchen, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Clearly having been woken by Titan, he took one look at Carol, frozen against the counter, then at Titan, then at the open refrigerator door, and his eyes snapped wide open. Carol, he said, utterly bewildered. What in the world are you doing in Mark's house? Carol, now trapped between a police K9 and a very confused police officer, completely lost it. He let you in. He left the door unlocked. This is an invasion of privacy. I was just tidying up. Tidying up? Dave repeated, a slow, incredulous smile spreading across his face. In his kitchen? While he's away? He looked down at Titan. Good boy, Titan. Looks like you found a... Visitor Dave, thankfully, was a seasoned officer. He knew immediately what was happening. He pulled out his phone, and I heard him say, Mark, you're not going to believe this? He turned the phone towards Carol, and that's when she pulled out her phone, dialing. Her eyes fixed on me with a venomous glint. You have no idea who you're messing with, officer, she sneered, her voice dripping with the kind of condescension that could curdle milk. This property is mine for the day. You're about to find out what happens when you cross a high-powered real estate agent. My heart hammered against my ribs. A cold dread washing over me as I heard the distinct jingle of Titan's tags. A sound usually so comforting, now laced with an undeniable sense of dread. And that's when everything went wrong. Just as Carol was. Sputtering into her phone about unlawful detention and police brutality, all while Titan sat patiently at her feet, occasionally letting out a soft whimper of concern for her obvious distress. I heard the distinct sound of approaching sirens. The units I had called were arriving. Dave, bless his calm demeanor, put his own phone away and walked towards Carol, his expression serious. Ma'am, I'm a police officer. You are currently trespassing in a private residence. Any calls you make right now will be recorded as obstruction of justice. I advise you to put your phone down and cooperate. Carol, however, was beyond reason. This is my neighborhood. I have a right to ensure standards are met. His house is a biohazard. And this animal attacked me? She pointed a trembling finger at Titan, who, at the mention of attacked, merely tilted his head and let out a mournful little groan, as if to say, Me? Attack. I just wanted cuddles. Just then, 2 uniformed officers walked through my front door, their hands on their hips, surveying the scene. Carol, red-faced and yelling, pressed against the counter. Titan, looking like an innocent, furry bystander. And Dave, standing calmly, a hint of amusement in his eyes. Officer Peterson, what have we got here? One of them asked Dave, recognizing him. Well, Officer Davis, Dave replied, nodding towards Carol. We have a citizen who apparently decided to perform an unauthorized home inspection and reorganization of my colleague's spice rack. She's claiming to be an assault victim of my K9 partner here. He gestured to Titan, who I believe was merely attempting to make a new friend. Carol erupted. He's lying. That dog is a menace. And this man broke into my house. Officer Davis raised an eyebrow. Ma'am, this is Mr. Peterson's house. Officer Mark Peterson's, not yours. But the HOA, Carol stammered, her voice losing some of its earlier bravado. He's violating so many rules. I had to take matters into my own hands. He leaves his windows open. His mail is piled up. It's an eyesore. Breaking and entering is a felony, ma'am, Officer Davis stated, his tone firm. Even if you believe there are HOA violations, that does not give you legal authority to enter someone's private residence. The second officer, Officer Chen, walked over to Titan, who immediately offered his head for a scratch, his tail wagging. This menace, huh? Looks pretty friendly to me. He glanced at Carol. And you claim he attacked you? He growled. Carol protested, her face still bright red. And he cornered me. It was terrifying. Dave, ever the professional, stepped in. For the record, officers, I was asleep in the guest room when this occurred. Titan's bark woke me. He was standing calmly in the kitchen when I came in, and he appeared to be simply observing the intruder. Officer Davis then turned to Carol. Ma'am, we have a live security feed from the homeowner that clearly shows you entering the residence, rummaging through his belongings, and then making false claims of assault against a police K-9. We're going to have to take you down to the SCRCS. Carol's jaw dropped. The live feed? But I was so careful. I wore gloves. I didn't touch anything. Oh, you touched plenty, Carol, I said, my voice cutting through the phone line. Dave had switched it to speaker. You dusted my mantelpiece, rearranged my spices, and snooped through my mail. All of which is clearly visible on camera. Carol's eyes widened in horror as she realized. I had been watching her entire invasion. Her face crumpled, all the entitlement and anger draining away, replaced by pure, unadulterated shame. You saw all that. She whispered. Every single minute, I confirmed, a grim satisfaction in my voice. And my partners here have the evidence. You're going to be facing charges, Carol. Breaking and entering, obstruction, potentially filing a false police report. The officers proceeded to cuff Carol, who, for once, was utterly silent. As they let her out, she cast one last, desperate glance back at my kitchen, at the rearranged spices. At the feather duster lying on the floor, it was a look of utter defeat. The next morning I drove home, completely exhausted but also filled with a strange sense of closure. Dave met me at the door, Titan practically knocking me over with enthusiastic licks. Good job. Buddy, I murmured, ruffling Titan's fur. You held down the fort, Dave chuckled. He certainly did. Never seen Carol so speechless. She'll be facing a pretty hefty bill, not to mention a criminal record. And the HOA. They've already issued a public apology to you and are initiating proceedings to remove her. Permanently. I spent the rest of the day meticulously cleaning my house. Not because Carol had made a mess, but because her presence had left a psychic stain. I replaced the spice jars she'd touched, wiped down every surface she'd breathed on. It wasn't just about cleanliness. It was about reclaiming my space, asserting my boundaries. The incident rocked the neighborhood. For weeks, people came up to me, apologizing for Carol's behavior, offering support. Many admitted they had been subjected to her standards enforcement as well, but had been too intimidated to speak up. My home, once a target of her scrutiny, had become a symbol of standing up to overreach. Titan, of course, got extra treats and belly rubs for being such a good boy. He'd handled the situation perfectly, acting as a deterrent without escalating to aggression. He was a true professional, even off-duty. This whole ordeal taught me a lot. It taught me that sometimes the biggest threats don't come from the dark alleys, but from the seemingly innocuous suburban streets. It taught me the importance of privacy, of boundaries, and of trusting my instincts. And most importantly, it reminded me that having a loyal, well-trained partner, whether human or canine, makes all the difference when things go sideways. My house is secure, my peace restored, and Carol is hopefully out of my hair for good. But in a neighborhood where HOAs wield so much power, you can bet there's always another self-appointed standards enforcer waiting in the wings.